Originally, when the scheme came in, it was accompanied by a financial viability assessment that said that the scheme couldn't deliver any affordable homes. Obviously, that was then reviewed by the council, who identified there was a surplus which could potentially go into seven affordable homes. But as the case with viability, it then goes back and forth because you're testing particularly things like sale values, cost values, etc. Because you could argue that you could say because obviously it's always just estimates at this stage. A house could be valued at 600,000, but another house could then it's another stage could say 700. So you'll never clear cut exactly where that's going to be. So there's obviously margins and going within reasonable, realistic margins. So as I say, yeah, we then identified a surplus which potentially could take a scheme of where they're agreeing when we done with the back and forth agreeing benchmark land value for the site and the residual land value. It was taken that would take into account the provision of 5 affordable homes, which was 3 London affordable rent and 2 shared ownership. However, we note that with RPs, they tend to have a preference for single tenure, particularly in very small schemes, and as as we do have a real demand for social rent homes. So instead, we tested it on the basis of 4 social rent homes, and obviously the values of them would be lower than if you're combining LAR and intermediate homes, where they have a higher threshold, and that then came to 3 2-beds and 1 3-bed home as the maximum viable amount. And yeah, so that's kind of where that comes from as a.
Okay. And is and will that go ahead? Or because with the registered providers, so we won't have registered providers, so we can have social rent, or we'll.
Yep, I mean, so the scheme will secure, as I say, in the provision of the 4 social rented homes. What we have found, in particularly more recent times, is our RPs, they sometimes struggle to take on board a small number of homes. So in the much bigger developments, if there's a whole block, they may then take acquisition of that whole block, or sometimes the council takes them on as the affordable housing provider. But it can be more challenging when it's smaller schemes. So in them cases, we've seen in other scenarios where there just hasn't been the market for them. They've had to provide lots of robust evidence to us, but then that can then be converted, if we're satisfied, into a payment in lieu for affordable housing within the borough. In
We
this
leave that
case,
down to you.
yeah, it's kind of like a cascade. So the expectation is it's 4 social rented homes. If with all of the sufficient marketing evidence and evidence that we need to really truly demonstrate there's no there's RP just cannot take them on, then they identified an offsite a contribution of just over 1.1 million, which essentially is a difference in the values between a wholly private scheme and them for social rented homes. So so that's where that comes from. And there's also still early and late stage review mechanisms.
And we have to leave that down to yourselves. We can't influence that in any way. Well, we can't, can we? You either find the registered providers or you don't.
Yeah, we go through a process of making sure we would review which ones have been out to, make sure they've been out to all the appropriate ones, they've got the right contact details. We quite often make contact with the RPs, seeing if there's interest. We'll make contact internally in the council, see if there's any interest for the council becoming an RP, and so forth. And then after all that, if after a period of 6 months of trying to do that, and legitimately trying to do that, that they still don't have an RP to take them on, and then it will cascade. So it's a yes, we're asking for to do this at officer level, but it's a very, very robust process, and we
follow that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think so. One of them is 3-bedroom, the other 3 are 2-bedroom out of the 4.
That's right. There's 3-bedroom and then there's 3 2-bedrooms. So the 3-bedroom is on the ground floor with the larger garden, and then you've got the 2-bedroom next to it, and then the two flats above.
Yeah. So while obviously, you got different quantum and number, I mean, actually, social rent in Willesden of family size units, would probably be seen as quite a benefit to the scheme.